आपका सक्सेस सीक्रेट फॉर्मूला तो थोड़ा बताइए ना हमें।
एक्चुअली अगर मैं बोलूँ राइट, आई थिंक वन ऑफ द वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग्स जो है टू बी सक्सेसफुल इन एनी कैरियर, आई थिंक इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू एक्चुअली connect with people in the organization. At the end of the
हाँ,
day, we are people working for people, right, and working with people. So I think people call you because they believe you are professional, you will do a good job, but only when you work with people together. It's not possible for all of us to know everything in life. If we approach a situation with a lot of willingness to learn, with a lot of humility, that I'm not the expert on this and I'll never be the expert on this piece, right? I'm not in this role because I'm an expert in everything. I'm in this role because I can do critical thinking, I can be logical, I can navigate solutions. I think that's the only thing that will work.
hello, hi everyone. Welcome to the Pursuit of Finance Stories Beyond Numbers podcast. I'm Nidhi Jain, and together we will explore the world of finance careers. We will learn from the life stories and experiences of the leaders who have done it all. Either you are a professional who have just begun your career, or you are a seasoned professional. You will have inspiration to take away. Today we have Kamini Shah on board with us. She is the CFO of Birlasoft with more than 25 years of experience, and she is a rank holder chartered accountant. She has worked in various industries and manufacturing as well as service, and also in various functions. She has earned numerous awards. She is very passionate about diversity and mentoring, and I'm so excited to have Kamini on board with us. Welcome, Kamini, to our show.
Lovely, Nidhi. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you so much. So, Kamini, tell us about your background, your life story. Where did you grow up? What motivated you to take up finance as a career?
Okay. So I'm just thinking, Nidhi, where do I start from, right? I mean, I think life has just gone by, and as I think to reflect on all of it, right? So, I kind of was born in a very typical middle class family. And, one of the very important things with middle class families was, I think, education is the only means through which you actually make your life. My father, we were about four sisters when we were born, and
Hmm.
in a classical Gujarati family, education normally is not given a priority, but I think my father was an exception from that standpoint. So he always kept pushing us to make sure that we focused on education. And
Hmm.
as I completed it, he himself was the first chartered accountant, first educated member of his family. Typically, in our families, we find that people get into businesses the moment they complete their 10th or 12th standard. He wanted to do something different. And I think he was my first inspiration or role model, if I may say so. And once I completed my graduation, I was at crossroads in terms of what did I want to do in life. I was thinking about
Hmm.
different options. And because of what I saw through him, I decided to enter CA. I didn't know much about CA. I think he's the one who guided me, and that's how I got into the field of finance. Always good at numbers. I think it's probably in our DNA, to some extent, if I may say so, right? To a large extent. The only thing that I did when I was doing my, CA, I was very passionate about certain subjects, and I think that helped me do well in terms of being able to clear my exams. I started my career with Hindustan Lever. I think that's the best organization that one can start off, because with levers, and I was with them for about 12 years. I did multiple roles with them, and it's
Hmm.
through the entire breadth of finance. They give you an opportunity. I think they believe in the potential of people, and then even if you're half ready for the role, you get an opportunity to participate. And Didi, you must have experienced that in
Yes,
your entire
absolutely.
tenure, that you were with levers, right? So whether it was working in financial or management accountant when I started my journey with Ponds India Limited, or whether it was looking at an opportunity to work in a mushroom factory, staying all by
Hmm.
myself in Uti. I mean, nice place for a holiday, but not really a place to go and work when the monsoons are at its peak, right? I mean, working, whether it was working in a mushroom factory, or whether it was working in a beverage division, or whether it was working Kishan products, whether you do IT or whether you do
Hmm.
procurement. I think Levers gave me a diverse set of opportunities, and there were enough mentors. I mean, in the entire system, people whom you could reach out to, enough resources available for you. And I think I thoroughly enjoyed my 12 years that I had with Levers. Post levers, I moved in, to HP. I'm covering up key aspects of my career, which is more into the services industry, right? That I did at this point of time. If I learned a lot about professional excellence in levers capability, I think what HP gave me was a lot around people management, because I was suddenly managing very large teams. I in fact did very diverse roles, Nidhi. I started running end-to-end processes when I joined HP. So I was working in revenue accounting processes for global worldwide. That is what I was doing. I was doing some parts of claim processing. I was running teams of about 300 people. And I remember that the
Wow.
first town hall that I was entering in, I was shaking. My knees were shaking because I've never spoken to 300 people earlier. And I was wondering what would they want to listen to. And then I think that's where my journey became, where I was working with much younger people, working in processes, very different experience with HP that I did for the few 6 7 years that I was with them. And post that, I went into the IT services industry with emphasis, which was again one of HP's acquisitions that it came under. And that was a very interesting, different perspectives in the services space. I know a lot of people feel, and we should touch upon that in a while, that transitioning from FMCG to services is very difficult. I can just tell you
Yes.
that if you have an understanding of business and if you're passionate to learn the nuts and bolts, I think every business has its own excitement. So it's been, 3 years, 3.5 years with emphasis, 6 years with Wipro. Enjoyed it tremendously in business partnering because that's an area of interest for me. And then after that, I joined Birlasoft about a year back. And it's been a wonderful journey so far, Nidhi. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed my professional journey. I think at every point of time, I've always looked for something to learn, something that, it challenges me. If that role has that aspect of it, then I think I've just jumped in whether I was ready or not ready into the role. And then I've just flown with the role. And I think that's really been my overall experience so far.
So, Kamini, you have a very interesting journey. So, have you also worked in various part of various countries as well?
So not really, Nidhi. While as part of my work and services, you obviously need to travel to a lot of countries, right? As part of it, predominantly it could be US, UK. So you keep traveling on work to that extent. But largely, I have operated out of India as part of my journey.
Okay, but you must have interacted with people all around the world, specifically in the service industry. That's the benefit, right? That you have
Oh
the
yeah,
wide
absolutely.
coverage.
Absolutely, Nidhi. I have operated with people with very different work cultures. There, if you look at it, my first job, I had to work with, people from Europe, people from Australia, and I must say, I struggled initially to understand the various accents that I was operating with. I made very good friends somewhere along the way. I was also operating with Latin America in one of my roles. So you do work with people from very diverse cultures. You understand what they say, what they mean are very different things to that extent. And one of the things, if I may say, they would say that, why is it that Indians always say this and this, and we don't know whether they're saying yes or no, right, from that standpoint. So so we have opportunity to share a lot, right, as part
Hmm.
of it. It's just not about the work culture, it's also about learning cultures globally. As you meet them, you understand them to that extent. Yeah, absolutely, Didi. I think services industries does give you an opportunity to understand very diverse cultures and how they operate.
Very interesting. Like you have worked in Fortune 500 companies in various functions and also manufacturing and service and tech. I think all of these we will touch upon later on, but very interesting to hear. If you can share also about brief about your family as well.
Okay. So, like I said, that obviously in a family of only girls. I mean, I think we grew up with the indication that there is absolutely nothing. There's no difference between girls and boys, right? That was not even there. And I think to some extent that also gets into my philosophy of how important diversity is in an organization. To that
Hmm.
extent, I would always, if I had to go back and talk to my dad, I would probably tell him there was no diversity at the workplace, at the home place at that point of time, right? To that extent. I have two young daughters. They are about 23 and 21 at this point of time. One of the
Okay.
things that I think typically every working moms goes through is the fact that you juggle a lot of balls when you're working in your career,
Hmm.
and that has been an interesting aspect of my journey. As my children were growing out, I built my own support systems along the way. These they don't necessarily need to be from the family; they could also be people outside who support you in
Hmm.
this journey. But right now I'm very proud. I have two young girls. They're all at different stages in their life. One is just about to start work, the other one is doing her undergrad at this point of time. And they keep me very young and engaged all the time.
That's very good, and it is amazing that how you have balanced your work and life, and work in leadership positions, like working and as head of 300 plus teams. Even I'm assuming that even in the role of Birlasoft CFO, you would have large teams under you. So the idea of managing the work responsibility as well as personal responsibility, I think each of those professionals will struggle through, and you will be good to know from you how are the tips to manage it. One is of course the support, but it also needs an inner drive. Without a drive, then it is becoming will be difficult. So Kamini, what happened, like what kept you motivated, like even with everything that you have to pursue?
So I think, Nidhi, I think one of my underlying beliefs has always been that a woman has to be financially independent. I think it is very important for our own personal confidence, our own motivation, right? I think that was my one of my very key underlining drivers, right? The second thing that I believe, and this to some extent also led me to say, come what may, I'm not going to leave my job or my career, irrespective of whatever I
Mhm.
do. So, this to me was a non negotiable component to it. Even around the time when I decided to get married, I was very clear with my partner that, this is not up for discussion at all. The way you have your career, I have my career, and we have to be aligned that both our careers are very important, right? Because, while we talk a lot of other things, I think this is equally important from that standpoint. So for me, that was very important. See, one of the reasons why this was very important is I'd seen a lot of women through their careers at very important stages in life deciding
Mhm.
to drop off on their career because of multiple other responsibilities that were happening in their life. And I'm not
Sure.
saying it's right or wrong. I think each one looks at it very differently. So I think from my standpoint, that was one thing that was extremely important for me. The second thing that I said that, okay, now that this is what I want to do, how do I make it work? Right? And
Mhm.
which is how I decided to put in one, the support system around me. Two is, it is okay at points of time in your careers, and I've done that, to say that what is more important, both at the workplace and both at your personal space. So there are
Hmm.
times when something is extremely important, I would not participate in everything with my children. I made sure that between the two of us, between me and my husband, one of us is always available. It is sometime my career would run forward, sometime my husband's career would run forward, but we
Hmm.
balanced it out as a couple. So I think that understanding between partners is extremely important. And there are times at the workplace where I was able to tell them that, listen, this is important for me. I don't think I will not be available if you want me to do this, or this is my personal time, or this is my black time. So I think in simpleness, or if I were to say, Nidhi, I think it's important to create clarity in mind for yourself. You cannot
Hmm.
be a superwoman, right? Or a superhuman being for that matter, right? If I have to say that. And if you're clear about what is it that you want to do and how do you work around it, I think the rest of it will follow. I find that
Hmm.
authenticity and clarity in communication with people around, by telling them what you can do and what you cannot do, I think will create a lot of respect for you as a professional, and will create a lot of peace of mind for yourself. Otherwise, you may be at workplace but you'll be living mentally at home, and the other way around, right? So I think that's what has helped me in that whole process. This is not something that has happened in one attempt. This is something that will take a little bit of time as we evolve ourselves as professionals, as evolve ourselves as mature human beings. I mean, that's what has helped for me, actually, if I look at it.
Sure. I think the point which you mentioned about being authentic and being clear what you can do, what you cannot do, वो बहुत important है. मतलब like I was reading in a book which says कि stay away from disease to please. सबको आप खुश नहीं कर सकते. यू मेक अ चॉइस कि आपको क्या करना है. एंड आई थिंक इफ आई एम अंडरस्टैंडिंग इंटरप्रिटिंग फ्रॉम यू, इट्स अबाउट यू टेकिंग अ चॉइस कि आपको कहाँ इन्वॉल्व होना है, किस चीज को कब प्रायोरिटी देनी है. सो दैट हैज हेल्प यू एज वेल. इज माई अंडरस्टैंडिंग करेक्ट?
नहीं, नहीं, आप जो बोल रहे हैं सही बात है निधि, राइट? बिकॉज़ अगर आपको क्लैरिटी नहीं रहेगी कि आपको
हम्म.
कहाँ पे प्रायोरिटाइज़ करना है, एक तो आप क कंफर्टेबल नहीं रहेंगे, you will not be happy,
हम्म.
to that extent. अगर if you are not happy, then you know it will reflect the way you do your work or the way you manage your personal life and the balance, right? So you are absolutely right. ये clarity चाहिए हमें अपने दिमाग में, and then rest of the actions will automatically flow. I think the mind is most important to control. उसके बाद सब हो जाता है अपने आप.
Yeah, sure. Very good point you mentioned. So, Kamini, tell us about your life. You just reflect back. If there was any life-changing experience, जिसने आपकी पूरी सोच ही बदल दी, या something which was of importance to you and made a difference in your working style. Was there any such situation in your life?
See, I think there have been situations in my personal life, Nidhi, if I may to say so, right? Because I'm a single parent at this point of
Hmm.
time. There was a time when about 8 years back, I lost my partner, and that to me was a moment of truth where I was quite shaken up in terms of how I would manage my personal life, how I would manage my
Hmm.
professional life, and how would I balance the two, because there is just so much that I had to manage at that point of time. To me, that was a life changing event to some extent, because I had to reorient what was very important for me, and that is a time when I relied a lot more on my personal network to help me manage that. I think a lot of
Hmm.
personal situations do get you into a situation where you rethink about what is important for you and what is
Hmm.
critical for you at that point of time. I had even put aside some of my very personal ambitions from a professional standpoint, because my personal life needed a lot more out of me at that point of time, which is what I will link back to say that be very clear about what is very important to you at a point of time, right? The second aspect of what maybe I would probably quote another example in terms of what I had. One of my earlier managers, right, which I had was a very fearless young man, and I'd seen
Hmm.
that at the initial part of my career. I won't mention any names over here, but I would only say that one of the things that I learned from him very early in my career was that you have to be very true to yourself in the way you execute your work. And I had
Hmm.
found him that he had single-handedly taken up a lot of battles internally within the organizations, not bothering about what it would do for his own career, because this is what he believed in, to a large
Okay.
extent. Okay, so that watching that experience from far away, hmm,
Hmm.
made me realize that as a professional, you owe it you yourself to be very clear about what is very important and what is negotiable and what is not negotiable when you are actually working. And you don't have to look at your own personal gains at that point of time in terms of what it will do to you if you stand up against people whom you believe are not doing things right. So I think this was a defining moment for me from a professional career standpoint. When I look at, he's still one of my mentors today, and when I look at him, I say that you are the one who changed my thoughts in terms of how fearless you should be in your professional journey, right, to that extent.
Hmm.
So I think one personal defining experience and professional, there are a lot of them that happen in life, but if I stood back, probably these are the two things that would come in my mind, Nidhi, that I can talk about.
Thanks so much for sharing. I'm sorry for your loss,
Huh?
and hats off to your courage, Kamini. So to manage it and to raise two beautiful daughters, as well as do beautifully in your work. Because I have seen and I've been noticing your professional career, the awards which you're receiving. I think every other quarter I see that lots of recognitions are coming on your way. So you are managing both of these beautifully. So thanks so much for sharing. So going on to your current, last couple of years, or any two projects professionally, one or two projects, initiatives which you are proud of, which will be of interest to the viewers, like क्या कोई complex project या initiative आप share करना चाहेंगे?
So if I were to really, I wouldn't say it's a complex problem as such, Diti, but let me share that when I took over my current engagement, at
Hmm.
Birlasoft, there were a lot of areas that I had not done initially. Because
Hmm.
today my role is encompassing, in addition to finance, in a classical CFO role, you have to handle secretarial, you have to handle treasury, I had to
Yes.
handle investor relationships. I had done business partnering very well. I had done controllership, right, to that extent. There were many parts of my role that I had not really done on it.
Hmm.
And the way I had approached it, and this would be, my advice to anybody who wants to do it, I right up front told my team that, listen, I don't know enough on this at this point of
Okay.
time, right? Okay, so don't look at me. To I can approach any situation with logic, with rational, with
Hmm. Hmm.
practicality, but I don't have the depth of knowledge that is expected out of this, and I'm absolutely willing to learn, right? In terms of what the role required. And I should say, to the credit of my team, in the first couple of quarters, they actually helped me scale up very quickly onto this role. The point that I'm making, Nidhi, is that in life it's not possible for all of us to know
Hmm.
everything in life, right? I
That
think
is so true. Hmm.
if we approach a situation with a lot of willingness to learn, with a lot of humility, that I'm not the expert on this and I'll never be the expert on this piece, right? And I'm not in this role because I'm an expert in everything. I'm in this role because I can do critical thinking, I can be logical,
Hmm.
I can navigate solutions. I think that's the only thing that will work. And this is what I would want to leave with the viewers. It's very important to think in that manner wherever you are, and I think you'll be really able to make a significant difference. So I think that's one thing in the last 2 years that I had looked at. The second thing, when I really joined an organization as large as Wipro, I did not know how to really do a lot of complex pricing for IT
Okay.
services business. Okay, and in manufacturing and FMCG, the pricing methodology, the commercial constructs are very different, right? I did not even
Yes.
know a lot of legal terms for a lot of services contracts, right? But they took if they hired me, they believed I had the capability to do that role, and I again rolled down my sleeves to understand how do you do revenue recognition for an IT services company? How do you actually do pricing? What are the cost elements that you do, right? And
Hmm.
how do you construct contracts? How do you read contracts? So I think the point that I'm making is that in life, all of us will always have situations where we will not know anything, but we'll have to rely on our common sense, our critical thinking and reasoning to be able to navigate and understand that situation. And I think that will hold us in good stead.
Yeah, common sense. I think point आपने बोला ना, with common sense and critical thinking we can learn and we can take help from experts also when required. But I think learning along the way, ये दोनों elements बहुत important है. So thanks for sharing these two experiences with us. If we go on to further and related question, like आपकी लाइफ में टॉप 3 स्किल्स जिसको आप बोलते हैं कि उसके कारण आपको सक्सेसफुल करियर मिला है, व्हाट वुड दैट बी?
Okay. अभी ये बोल about बहुत डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं दीदी बेसिकली.
आपका सक्सेस सीक्रेट फॉर्मूला तो थोड़ा बताइए ना हमें.
नहीं नहीं, बट एक्चुअली अगर मैं बोलूँ, राइट, आई थिंक वन ऑफ द वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग्स जो है टू बी सक्सेसफुल इन एनी कैरियर, मैं फाइनेंस की नहीं, मैं कोई किसी भी कैरियर पे बोल रही, आई थिंक इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू एक्चुअली कनेक्ट विद पीपल इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, राइट? अभी मैं फाइनेंस स्किल की नहीं बात कर रही हूँ, राइट? एट द एंड ऑफ द
हाँ.
डे we are people working for people, right, and working with people. So I think
हम्म.
people call you because they believe you are professional, you will do a good
Yes.
job, but only when you
हम्म.
work with people together. So my personal experience has been is that it's good to have a very strong network. Good to
हम्म.
invest in that network and be connected with people. I'm not as good as it as I would want to be. There are people, and I'll mention a few names at the end of it, who are very good at
हम्म.
this. But I think it's important if you are connected with people, because then that helps you manage a lot of things and navigate even outside the organization, right?
हम्म.
जो अगर आपको कोई doubt हो, you want an advice, you can pick up a phone and talk to somebody and say, listen, आप कैसे कर रहे हो? Give me an
हम्म.
advice, and that I think helps you. So I think that's one aspect of what I would call out, which is very important as professionals. The second thing that I would call out is that it is very important to be updated in what's happening in your field, right? ऐसा
Hmm.
नहीं हो कि हमने सीए खत्म कर दिया, पढ़ाई खत्म कर दी, so then
Hmm.
we are not updated about what's happening in our industry, what is happening in industry, what is happening in our profession. आई थिंक दैट
Okay.
लर्निंग, कंटिन्यूअस लर्निंग इज एक्सट्रीमली इम्पॉर्टेंट. और आजकल अगर आप देखो तो देर आर सो मेनी सोर्सेस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन. इट्स अ क्वेश्चन ऑफ
Absolutely.
ट्राइंग टू फाइंड द
Hmm.
टाइम and be updated about what's happening, because उसमें क्या होता है is that you will be able to advise appropriately when it comes to
Hmm.
people. I think that's the second aspect of what I would call for. The third thing that and it's a mix of competency and skill that I'm bringing in over here. The third thing that I would say is that please be very receptive and open to
Hmm.
things which are there, right? Because then it will open up a lot more new areas in terms of what you need to do. Be a true partner to your
Hmm.
business stakeholders. Always look
Sure.
at how you can bring value to the table, right? Because you have a seat in the table only because you understand their business, you understand what they go through, and then
Hmm.
you can use your financial expertise to be able to craft out solutions to solve the business problem. So I think it's very important to be problem solving in your orientation when you talk to people. So if I were to summarize, I would say maybe two or three things that has helped me, and I've seen that with a lot of very successful professionals. One is, I
Sure.
think you have to have a good network, people whom you can tap on anytime you
Hmm.
need anything. Second thing is, please be updated yourself on what's happening in your industry, what's happening in your profession. The third thing I would say is that be extremely problem solving and solution oriented, because then you can do good business partnering and you bring value
Hmm.
to the table, right? I mean, I think these are probably some of the aspects. There are lots of things that I can say, but if I were to look at it, probably these will be the two or three things which are very important from my
नहीं, I
standpoint.
think आपने जो point बोले ना Kamini, when I'm speaking to a lot of leaders, they are also sharing the same. I think the point then these are three very very critical about success for any person. Now I will ask actually series of tough questions with you, like the
My God.
challenges which people yeah. But I am imagining in your 25 years plus career आपने उनको बहुत अच्छे से handle किए. But if I talk to many people here, sometimes we are afraid to ask these questions. These are some of the tough questions we even sometimes don't even want to say. But I will say this today so that with your experience, we can learn how do we handle if these kind of situations anyone come across, especially when they are early in their career or they are in the mid career. Maybe if you think कि अगर वो particular question एक if person is early in the career एक different approach है to the someone who is a seasoned professional तो आप
Sure.
उसको highlight कर सकते हैं. First question is when sometimes during the even the recruitment, so there would be now lots of posting either on LinkedIn, etc. And many a times people will post and people will apply भी कर दिया post और wait कर रहे हैं, कोई उसमें कोई response नहीं है. एंड 100 प्लस एप्लीकेशंस हर जॉब के लिए. तो जो लोगों के माइंड में एक स्ट्रेस होता है कि शुड वी गो अप्रोच एचआर, शुड वी गो अप्रोच लाइन मैनेजर, शुड वी जस्ट इवन सीक अ डिस्कशन थ्रू अ नेटवर्क इन दैट विद इन दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. तो आपने आपकी क्या एडवाइस रहेगी इफ दिस काइंड ऑफ सिचुएशन हैपेंस व्हेन वी बिलीव कि हम लोग उस पर्टिकुलर रोल के लिए सुटेबल हैं, बट बिकॉज इट इज आउट ऑफ वन अमंग्स 100 वी मे नॉट इवन गेट अ चांस टू प्रेजेंट आवरसेल्फ. उसमें आपका कोई सजेशन है?
नहीं, आई हैव ऑलवेज रियलाइज दैट दीदी कि सी देखो आजकल जो भी जॉब ऑफर जो आता है, राइट, व्हेन एनी जॉब इज
हम्म.
एडवर्टाइज, देयर आर जस्ट टू मेनी एप्लीकेंट्स फॉर इट. आपने सही कहा, राइट,
Yeah.
बिकॉज समटाइम्स अभी एक दिन हुआ 100 एप्लीकेशंस on that point, right? And it's very difficult
Yeah.
to have your application reach out. I think, which is going back to my point on network, right? It is always
Mm.
better to look at, is there somebody who in that organization can connect you either to the HR or the hiring manager, so that you get an opportunity to have a conversation. And believe me, you lose nothing by taking that extra effort. Because अगर आप देखो hiring
Mm.
manager के हिसाब से, and I've been a hiring manager, you have so many applications that come to you. बहुत
Yeah.
difficult हो जाता है in terms of how do you sort out and figure out which are the ones
Mm.
that you should do, right? So to very in a very simple terms, absolutely, if you know somebody who's working in that organization, and there are many people
Mm.
who reach out to me, even if you don't know somebody who's working out,
Yeah.
बहुत लोग मुझे, they write to me and say, this is a job I have seen, can you please help
Okay.
reach to the manager, I always send it out to my HR, I send it out to my recruitment team, and I tell them, listen, I will reach your CV to the hiring manager or to the HR. Uske baad they will decide on what needs to be done. Only thing
Hmm.
that I would tell you for all of us to be aware of, and it's been a very my personal experience that I've had. Don't keep chasing up with the person whom you have asked for help, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that as a job seeker, and I know हमारे में बहुत stress रहता है कि देखो मैंने आपको
Hmm.
application भेजा है अपना, have you sent it to HR? Did the HR
Yeah.
person come back to you? Right now, it's very difficult for you to tap into that other person the second time, because that person will say, oh my god, मैं अभी अगर भेजूंगी तो that person will keep chasing up with me. So I would recommend that if you know the person personally, then definitely call them and tell them, yeah, this is a job profile. I believe I'll meet the
Okay.
profile. I'll send you a one pager. Can you help reaching the profile? If you don't even know the
Sure.
person, right? But he's a second connection or third connection. Take a second connection. LinkedIn में तो आपको पता चल जाता है, right? In that case,
Hmm.
even if you're writing to that person to that extent, please maintain professional decorum to ensure that you don't keep chasing up with the person to do it, so that that person is always willing to help you. If this is not an opportunity, there could be another opportunity that would
Hmm.
come in, and you could always be considered for that, right? From that standpoint.
Sure, thanks for sharing that. So, second question for you. Now, the it's a discussion about salary negotiation. आगे भी interview भी हो गया, clear भी हो गया. And specifically, sometimes I feel even women as a person even are less of a negotiator when it comes to salary. But it could be true for women and men both. So, when someone is negotiating or seeking a salary, HR ने तो बोला budget is say 10 lakh rupees. You believe that your worth is 12 lakh or whatever that is. So how do you handle this kind of a crucial discussion?
So, again, it depends on which stage of your career that you are, right? If you look at a lot of people who are freshers, उसमें क्या
Hmm.
होता है, obviously there I think the salaries are a lot of defined depending upon the batch and the stream that you come from, right? So if you ask
Hmm.
me, वहाँ पे तुम आपका salary more or less is in a very is in a
Yeah.
very narrow range actually, right? So उसमें ज़्यादा negotiation नहीं होता है, maybe a little bit here and there, but I don't see too much of negotiation happening there.
Hmm.
But when you're looking at, if you are at your couple of years of experience, or if you're mid senior level, if you are at the mid up to a mid level, I would
Hmm.
recommend a couple of things. One is, I think it is important to benchmark, talk to people. This is where your network
Hmm.
comes into useful, right? As to what is the kind of salary range which are offered for this kind of experience level, this kind of profile. So I think data is important,
Okay.
right, to some extent,
Hmm.
because when you say with certain level of authenticity in terms of what you need to do. These days there are a lot of benchmark studies that come in for mid to senior levels that you can actually
Hmm.
utilize. Two is, I think it would be fair to have that conversation with your HR person, because a
Hmm.
lot of conversations on salary happen based on your last salary, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
may not work always in your favor. If you believe, and you will get that sense from the conversations that you've had with the hiring managers in terms of how they perceive you and how important they believe
Hmm.
you can add value into that role. I think it will be fair for you to have that conversation saying that, listen, I know you're looking at this is what you're offering me, but here is what I have done, and I would like to have a conversation to see why can't you offer me something more than that. I think then it's a process of negotiation. So don't be shy about it, Nidhi. That's what I would
Hmm.
say, right? Have that conversation. At some point of time, you may, instead of everything in a monetary basis, you may actually negotiate something else, either from a location standpoint or from a
Hmm.
timing standpoint or in terms of benefit standpoint. You have to decide what is important for you. But do your homework well in advance, so that when you are having that conversation with them, you are prepared with the facts in terms of what needs to be done. By the way, Didi, there is also another aspect of even negotiation within the organization. If you have something,
Hmm.
right, to that extent, if you have been and you feel that you're not at the right compensation level, have this conversation much earlier before your increment cycle happens, because there is no
Sure.
point talking at the time, 6 months before, 3 months before your normal increment cycle. Do your homework and go back and have a conversation saying that, I like my role, I like the work that
Hmm.
I'm doing over here, I've benchmarked myself, I believe that this is kind of difference. I need your support to do it. It'll give you a sense of gauging what your manager feels, he will have an opportunity to work within the organization, right?
Hmm.
He will also be able, because at the end of the day the manager has to also prepare the business case when he needs to do it, as in
Sure.
here that he has all the budgets in his hand, right? So you have given him
Yeah.
enough time, enough inputs, so that he's able to create that business case for you if he believes you are worth it. If he doesn't
Hmm.
believe you are worth it and he can find a cheaper replacement, then the conversation is very different, right? So all of this
Sure.
assuming, right, is that you are the person for the job, you believe you are adding far more value to the role,
Hmm.
and sometimes you may even go and say that I can take on more than what you want me to take on, but this is what I'm really looking at it from a compensation standpoint. So there are multiple things that you can possibly do. Only thing is, be clear about your own value that you bring to the table.
Sure.
Do your homework well in advance. Make sure
Hmm.
you've spoken to people so you have adequate information available. And I think if you use all of that, I think you can have a meaningful conversation.
Very good answers and very good recommendation, because sometimes we are scared. People will be scared to ask कि क्या होगा उनकी job का, will that impact relationship? But I think the learning which I'm taking away, if you have a logical discussion based on your benchmarking और उसकी value के बाद में, then it will help. Then it will also not like burn the bridges with your manager
Absolutely.
or with HR. But अगर अपने मन में ही रख के और बोला नहीं and then getting just seeking out, sometimes people will just try to say find another job, go out, just
Hmm.
because this particular topic they have not even discussed. So I think that's
Correct.
the very good message from your side. Now there is also sometimes the feeling which people will get is that a person who is similar to my experience or level of performance, uska promotion hua hai but mera promotion nahi hua. That feeling will be there in many people in different stages of their life. So how do we one first ensure कि ये situation आने से पहले, मतलब what's the best way, because sometimes even doing a good work is not, अगर present नहीं किया तो that also can impact your promotion. But if you can share your take on this question.
See, Dekho, this is something that I think every professional will face at some point of time in their life, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes you would be on the fast track, sometimes some of your peers will be on the fast track. So, ये career में होता रहता है. Is the first thing I
Hmm.
want to tell people. I also want to say that just because a promotion came a year delayed, that's not the end of your career. Because I have spoken
Hmm.
to a lot of younger people who felt that, oh my God, all my work has gone down the drain. You have not appreciated the effort that I have put in. So don't get
Hmm.
disappointed in the whole scheme of things. I think the way to approach this, right? And the underlining reason is you like the organization, you like the work that you do.
Hmm.
Obviously, when it came to deciding on promotions, your manager would have looked at what you have done versus what your peer has done. After a point of time, batch doesn't
Hmm.
matter in an organization. It's the value that you bring to the
Yeah.
table, right? Have a very
Hmm.
candid conversation with your manager where it is not an emotional conversation, right? Because where the reason why I
Hmm.
say it's not an emotional conversation, because then the conversation is more constructive. You get down to say that,
Yes.
listen, this is all the value that I thought I had brought to the table. And I think another aspect that I would
Hmm.
say, outside your promotion, Nidhi, keep prepping your manager for the expected promotion, which means that have
Hmm.
regular conversations with your manager, keep talking about the value that you bring in to the role.
Hmm.
Keep asking what more you can do on the role. Be also aware of what are the important deliverables that your function or your department has. How much are you
Hmm.
participating in that, right? So you have to be very self aware, not only of what you are doing in that role, but what your peers are doing in that role. How is everybody contributing? I think if you start getting that sense of awareness, I think whether a promotion comes or does not come will not be a surprise to you, because at the end of the day, you will clearly see that people who are taking a lot of responsibility, lot of accountability, going out of
Hmm.
their way, will obviously get an opportunity to be promoted on that. But let's say you have a situation where you believe you are a very second close and it has not happened. Have that conversation with your
Hmm.
manager, right? There is no need to resign just because a promotion didn't happen 1 year. Sit down and say that if
Hmm.
this is the path that I want to get to, tell me, these are all the things I believe I should do. What more do you think is missing in the whole scheme of things? Have a very mature conversation. I'm sure the two of you will be able to agree on this. and then you will be in a position to gauge whether you want to stay invested in the organization, or you don't want to stay invested in the organization. And I'm sure as you work through it, the promotion will come back with it. So my only submission to the viewers would be is, don't take a hasty decision. If a
Hmm.
salary increment or a promotion doesn't happen, a career is multiple years, right? People work for 25, 30, 35 years.
Yeah.
Eventually things come. Some might be a little fast, some might be a little slow, right? But know your
Hmm.
value and what you bring to the table, and be willing to have that conversation at an appropriate time, right? And that's where I would leave you. That would be my experience, which is work for me. I must also tell you that it's not easy, because in your younger years of your career, the peer competition is
Hmm.
so hard. You feel that life has not been very fair to you, but all I would ask is, bring some level of perspective. हो जाएगा
Hmm.
अपने टाइम पे, right? Just have a little bit of patience around the whole piece. Hmm?
I think having patience and believe कि ये long life career है. It is not like 1 or 2 years. I think that will
Correct.
help. So thanks for sharing on this. So taking it further, now if you have issues with the boss, how do you handle that? I don't know whether you personally had some issues when in your 25 years plus career, but sometimes when you have those issues, do you go to your skip line manager? Do you first have discussion with your line manager? Do you go to HR? I don't know what would be the best way. What's your recommendation on that?
No, it's not that. I think everybody has problems with bosses at some time or other in their career, right? It's a very common thing to do that. Yeah. But here is what I would say, right? I think the first thing, if you really have issues with your boss, if you're not able to align to it, subset the best thing would be is to talk to him. I mean, I
Hmm.
think as mature professionals, it is best to have that conversation with him.
Hmm.
First, we need to understand what is the issue with the boss, right? And I would break it down into two or three parts. The first part of it is,
Yeah.
is it because of the kind of work that you get in the
Hmm.
department, the level of importance that you have, the opportunities that are provided to you? That could be one category. The second category would be in terms of where the boss by nature is somebody who is extremely rude, very aggressive, crosses the professional line, right? See, the first part of it in my mind can be worked out, Nidhi, baat kar sakte hain. The second part of it in
Hmm.
my mind is non-negotiable, because you cannot let anybody treat you badly, and I think that is something is a
Hmm.
non-negotiable element that one must put for yourself. So in that case, I would definitely have a conversation, try to see if I can have a conversation. But if there's a basic characteristic of a person to operate in a particular manner, then in that case I would definitely talk to HR to see if there is an opportunity for me to move elsewhere,
Hmm.
in the organization in another role. Because if I like the organization, and I'm not able to work with a specific individual, then it is easier for me to do. But if, let's say, your organization is smaller, or the concerned person has substantial influence in the organization, and this is not the kind of work environment that you would want to operate in, then I would
Hmm.
recommend then to just cut your losses and move on. It
Hmm.
doesn't make sense to stay in a toxic environment, because end of the day, we are accountable for our own health and peace of mind. It doesn't make sense to do
Hmm.
that. But I have seen instances where relationships were turned around, at least in the former, where you've had people have had frank conversations with their managers, right,
Hmm.
to say that, listen, this is not working for me. I wish,
Yeah.
these are the things that I'm trying very hard, but this, I feel you've not been very fair to me on this piece.
Hmm.
I would really, it would really help if we could work this out. There are many instances where I've heard of experiences where things have turned around, right? So it is like any relationship where you have to take that effort to see if you are able to turn it around, and you are able to work that through, right? So in my mind, a lot of communication, articulation, be very factual, right? I think we have to somewhere learn to keep
Hmm.
our emotions a little out of the way, and be very factual in our conversations, right? And talk as adults. I think that will really help to try to solve a lot of these problems. By the way, you could have issues even with subordinates, you could have issues with colleagues in the organization, right? I would say the same thing kind of works, helps that way. Please have that conversation. I think a lot of problems in life can get sorted out with that. Sometimes people don't even realize it, that
Hmm.
the way they are behaving, somebody picks it up in a different manner. If it's still not solvable, then you will have to weigh what is important to you and what is your priority at that point of time, and take the appropriate steps.
So thanks for sharing that, and thanks for also calling out a distinction. कि first distinction can be solved, but the second distinction, you may work towards a different solution. So दोनों का जो differences आपने call out किया ना, that framework will help. Thanks for sharing on that. Now, this is also an important point, which a question from our side would be that having a voice on the table, like for example, specifically people who are early in their careers, or sometimes people who are little bit introvert or reserved in their nature. There is a big group of meeting. There are important meetings where everyone is evaluating, contributing, and you are not able to share your perspective. You feel shy. So how does one handle this kind of situation and come out of it?
Well, it takes a lot of practice, Nidhi, and I think I went through the same thing initially in my own career, right? Because I would find it would be very difficult for me if there are multiple people talking, at a very important meeting, or
Hmm.
I would find it difficult to share my perspective at that point of time. And that fear
Hmm.
comes in when I analyzed it later in my life. I think it comes in for multiple reasons, right? The first fear would be is that am I as knowledgeable as all the other people who are on the table, right? I think that was my first fear. I'm talking about
Hmm.
myself personally. The second fear that I had is, what happens if they laugh at me? Maybe the perspective that I bring may not be very relevant, right?
Hmm.
What if they laugh at what I say, or they, if they, they
Yeah.
don't listen to what I have to say, right? These are very real fears that all of us have. We are not, like I said,
Hmm.
we cannot be experts at everything. What has worked for me over the years, and this has happened through practice. It's not that it has been successful in the first meeting that I woke up and said I'm going to
Hmm.
participate in that conversation. One is I've done my homework, right? For meetings or rooms which are there where there are certain agenda items that are going to be discussed, where I want to make sure first
Hmm.
that I have a point of view. I think that's very important. You should make sure that you don't have a voice of table, or you should not speak out just to
Hmm.
agree with what everybody is agreeing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in that,
Yeah.
but please have your point of view, right? I think that's the first thing that is very important. The second thing that I have done to that extent is that I have spoken out. If I have not been heard, I have
Hmm.
again spoken out, and I have also said, please, can I would like to make a contribution, or I have my own point of view, right? I've even raised my voice, not to the extent of being to be heard in that room. It has taken me some time, over a
Hmm.
period of time, because there have been instances where people don't. So I said, listen, I do have a point of view, and I want to make that point of view. I have probably said that a couple of
Hmm.
times initially, till people started looking and said, okay, people are professional at the end of the day, right? So when you say that once or twice, people will hear you out. But if you have a point of view
Hmm.
and you believe that you can contribute, I think this will come through practice, Nidhi, right? One tip that I
Hmm.
heard from an earlier manager of mine was the fact that he said that, for any presentation or meeting, he would actually stand in front of the mirror and practice, right? And
Hmm.
and that used to help him, right, to that extent. So he would either rehearse the presentation, and for a 15-minute presentation, he said he sometimes spent 45 minutes to 1 hour rehearsing the presentation multiple
Hmm.
times. Or sometimes if there is a topic, he would have actually gone through the entire piece, written down all the important salient features. If there is a topic which he has to give a thing, he has even connected with people outside the room. So it depends upon
Hmm.
the gravity of the topic, where you want to have a very solid discussion. What you will realize is, over a period of time, that as you keep participating in conversations, as you talk
Hmm.
about things which are important, people will start listening to you, right? So
Sure.
I think that you have to take that first effort by yourself. You'll have to make sure that you are talking something other than merely echoing what other people in the rooms are doing. Otherwise, there is no point in listening to you if you're saying, yes, I agree with that, right? You have a point of view. You are able to articulate that. You are able to bring a different
Hmm.
perspective to the table. I think over a period of time, people will start respecting what you say. And that's how you really get that voice on the table that you do. This is something that has to be practiced, something that will come with time, right? Don't
Hmm.
expect it to work extremely well the first time you try it out, but give it a try. And there's not much to lose in the process. That's all I would say.
Yeah, I think the message for everyone is practice, practice. It is not like कि one day में हो जाएगा, but with practice, it will become better. And having your voice on the table is so important, either promotion के लिए, or even to drive any value in the organization. अगर हम बोलेंगे ही नहीं तो पता ही नहीं चलेगा हमारे perspective. So your inputs on कि कैसे practice के through कर सकते हैं, that is so important. Even for public speaking, like I am part of Toastmaster clubs, जो आपने point बोला कि practicing in front of mirror, and nowadays technology is also helping. There are apps जो help कर सकते हैं कि आप कैसे communicate
Absolutely.
कर रहे हो उसको check out करने के लिए. So for the listeners and viewers, I think use any technology which suits you, but practice. I think that's the point Kamini is sharing with us, which has helped Kamini, and it can help us also. So moving on further now, in the like from a finance perspective, sometimes we have a feeling that we are working finance and accounts, focusing on a particular work. But how do we ensure that we create, first of all, a larger value to the organization? That we are not merely a back-end function, but we are the function of the center. We are providing the maximum value. So, what's your learning over the years in different industries has been? What would be your advice on that?
See, my take is, if you really look as finance professionals, the advantage that they have, right, is that they have data, a lot of
Mhm.
information with them, right? But what some of us miss is that we don't create insights out of that huge amount
Hmm.
of data that you need to do. See, I've had a lot of feedback that I hear from a lot of business leaders. Ki, I asked for a presentation, and what a finance person did was he pasted his Excel on the presentation and he sent it to me, right? Which is there. Huh? And then he says, now what do I do with this? To that with that whole presentation that has come in with all Excel pasted sheets that came in, there is absolutely no insight for me to drive. I know my business. There are certain things that I'm working on, but if
Hmm.
the financial informations are giving you different insights from what I'm driving on, please come back and tell me. So to your point, Didi, I think the
Hmm.
biggest benefit that any finance person can do is to spend time first understanding the business that you are
Hmm.
supporting, right? And the second thing is to use the information that is available to you to churn out insights so that people can take decisions. Don't state the
Hmm.
problem alone, right? Your costs have gone up, your revenue has dropped. Okay, so what, right?
So
Is
what?
what I'm saying. Yeah,
Seriously,
I mean
they
that's
will
a
say ये तो
question
आप
that
computer भी कर देगा. Why you need humans? That's what they will think.
exactly. So I think that's the difference that any finance
Hmm.
professional can make.
So thank you. Now another tough question sometimes, or a challenge which the people may feel, is that they already have too much on their plates and then more is coming. How do they say no in a way which does not burn the bridges or does not impact their either promotions or ratings?
So my personal thing would be is that the way I have done it, right, Nidhi, in the past, I
Hmm.
have not said no, but what I have said is that can we just I have 8, 20, 10 tasks which I'm working on at this point of time. All of them are
Okay.
equally important. On my, I believe that 3 or 4 of them are extremely important at this point of time.
Hmm.
Here is a priority on which I am working on, right, at this point of
Okay.
time. Is there a different priority on which you want me to work on, right? So you have very subtly said that it's not possible for you to work on all the 8 or 10 tasks that are there.
Hmm.
There is some level of prioritization that needs to be done. So I do that all the time. I keep saying you can't work on everything all the time. You have to choose what
Yeah.
you want to work on, right? So have the
Hmm.
conversation on what is priority. And I'm sure your manager will understand that. Let's say you have 6 things on your list which is equally important for him to get. Then
Hmm.
if we say all the 6 are important and needs to be done, let's say in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, then it'd be good to tell him that, given what is important, maybe somebody else can pick this up in the interim. I can help them, right, while I focus on it, so that we together work together to do it. So I think the idea is to be able to have a conversation with your manager and get him a sense of what is there on your table, right, overall.
Hmm.
So that you make the priority list together. You are not saying that listen, तुमने मुझे बहुत काम दे दिया है,
Hmm.
I am overburdened for the compensation that you are paying me, you're working me very hard. That's not the conversation, right? The conversation is, देखो इतना सारा काम है, मैं इस प्रायोरिटी पे काम कर रही हूँ. Do you believe is there
Hmm.
something else you want me to work? Because the rest
Yeah.
of it will get a little delayed, right? So you know And I think if your manager is a sensible person, which they are in most cases, we'll get a sense of what you are saying and we'll be able to work through in terms of what is important and what is not important. So it's all about prioritization, Nidhi.
So you have answered beautifully all my challenging questions. So here a fun question for you. So what movie or a book which has really inspired you, if you can share with us?
Well, I read I read a lot of books and movies just for fun, right? To that extent, they're just I'm just trying to think through about it. Maybe I'll give it a pass, Nidhi. I can't think of anything else at this point of time. I just look at movies and books just from an entertainment standpoint. They just keep me engaged, and at that point of time, and then I move on to the next book or the movie.
Okay, that's an honest answer. So thanks. So Kamini, let's just assume that you are a 20 years old self now. What advice you will give to that person?
Yeah, actually, lots of things, Nidhi. First, I would say is don't be so hard on yourself, right?
Mm,
You don't have to achieve everything overnight to get there. So I would tell my 20-year-old to have some patience,
mm,
to be kind to yourself. You continue to be ambitious to get to where you want to do, but
mm,
things will come. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to do it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's okay to make
mm,
mistakes in your career. They are not irreversible to that extent. And things will evolve by themselves. So, I think my biggest advice I would tell myself is that, don't be so hard on yourself. Because I think when we are at the start of our careers, we are extremely hard on ourselves because we are very ambitious. We want to get to the
mm,
top. We want to do everything and we want it yesterday, right? So, given time, things will come. Uh, you know, uh, be wanting to learn, and I think that's not been an issue. Spend time, build mentors,
mm.
build friendships, enjoy life. I think a lot of those things are equally important in this journey as you go up in your career, right? Not everything has to be achieved on day one. That's what I would say.
Thanks so much for sharing that, because sometimes we feel we want to do everything. And for everyone who's viewing this, it is important that Kamini, what advices which you have given, we also take learnings from there and implement in our life. So thanks for sharing on that. So कामिनी, आपकी लाइफ में आपके mentors, आपकी family members जिन्होंने major contribution किया है, we want to thank them on our show. So to bring a great soul like Kamini in front of us to inspire us, motivate us. So आप किनका नाम लेना चाहेंगे?
I think the, the people that I would really like to thank in my life, Nidhi, I'll start with my father, right? Because
Yeah.
I think if he had not pushed me in this journey, I don't think I would have been here. So while he's not
Yeah.
alive today, I think he's been my first mentor from that standpoint. I really want to thank my husband and my family, plus
Hmm.
my sister. I think they have been strong supporters. Both my
Hmm.
daughters, in fact, they've been rooting for me every time. If I think twice before doing anything, they'll tell me, Mama, why are you stepping back? Just go all out for it. I think without that
Wow.
family support, I would have not done it.
Hmm.
I want to thank the crash parents, folks who took care of my children when they were young.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
without them, and we call them mama appa, actually, my kids still call them, and that in Canada is still another set of parents, because they were the one who taught a lot of values to my children. So I want to thank them, a lot of
Hmm.
it. A lot of my colleagues, mentors, I want to mention Kimsuka Narsiman. She was my first
Hmm.
mentor at a professional
Hmm.
workspace, who really helped me in terms of, I think, managing my initial careers. Ramesh Veeraraghavan, I think a lot of that,
Hmm.
was another very key mentor. Again, in the earlier days of my career, and along the way, I think there are so many mentors. If I start the list, it won't end. You know who you are. Thank you very much. I think you all have played a significant role in shaping me as a professional. I also want to thank people who gave me an opportunity to do different things in life and who
Hmm.
believed in me. Without that, it just wouldn't have been possible. And Nidhi, thank you very much for having me here, because it was such a wonderful opportunity talking about all of these. So I wanted to
Yeah.
express my gratitude to you also.
Thank you so much, Kamini. So, on behalf of Kamini and on behalf of all of us, I really want to thank your late father. I hope he's listening out there, your husband, your sister, your family members, and your two lovely daughters for supporting you, being with you. I can imagine how what the role kids play in our lives. So thank you so much to your kids crash parents. I think they made a lot of difference and provided you support. Thank you so much to Kipsuka ma'am. Thank you so much to Ramesh sir for making a difference in Kamini's ma'am. And thank you to everyone who has contributed along in your journey in giving you and such a beautiful life so that you are making impact and creating this world a beautiful place. I really would want to continue our conversation. It's amazing, Kamini. But yes, I will bring this to an end. I thanks to you for taking out time and sharing with us lots of your wisdoms. And thanks to everyone who is watching this for giving your time. And I hope you take something from this discussion. Thank you so much and have a great day, evening.
Thank you very much.